All right, it is 1 o'clock and time to begin. Hello and welcome to the Alpha Anywhere Demo and Q&A webcast. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Product Management here at Alpha Software, and I'm pleased to be joined by Dion McCormick, no relation, who is our lead solutions engineer. I believe Dion has got a short presentation for us today, but mostly today will be a Q&A session, so it's very important that you ask us some questions, or this may not be a very interesting session at all. You could ask those questions by typing them into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel. You could also submit questions ahead of time for next week's webinar at guides, G-U-I-D-E-S, at alphasoftware.com. One last thing before we get started, this session is being recorded. You could find these recordings at alphasoftware.com/videos or on YouTube at the Alpha Software Inc. channel. So let's get started. Hello, Dion. Are you there?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Let me go ahead and make you the presenter. Here we go.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate you taking the time to visit with us on a weekly basis. We're excited to have you here. Again, this is all about you. So if you have a moment, go to your GoToWebinar control panel. We're back to there into the questions section. That's previously we're using the chat area, but now we're using the questions section. Go there, put your questions in, and Dave will be keeping a close eye on those, and we'll go over those as we go through the process. Got a couple quick announcements, and then I've got a couple quick demos, just kind of things, tips and tricks to help you out. But again, we really want to answer your questions. And as always, you can send them to guides, G-U-I-D-E-S, at alphasoftware.com. That is our website, our email that we monitor for incoming questions and other pieces along those lines. So first and foremost, we want to let you know that we're looking for some more very talented people. And actually, we announced this a couple of weeks ago, and we've actually gotten some incredible submissions, and we're looking for more people. So if you are interested in doing mentoring, the idea is you're going to help guide new developers with Alpha Anywhere. So we'd love to have people who have experience deploying web or mobile applications with Alpha and any kind of specialized knowledge that you may have, because we're looking for more people. Our business is growing very, very rapidly. We're getting new projects every week. So we have a broad range of people we need to help out, and we need more people to help us do that. So take the time, go, and you can also just send it into guides at alphasoftware.com. If you're interested, we'll pass you along over to Greg in our professional services group, and he'll be working to work with people to bring them on board and help us out. We're very excited about that. Also, DevCon 2018, open and available. I've already got my flights and my registration. It's going to be so much fun. It's down in Orlando, Florida. It's got a different structure than previous years. So if you get a chance, go to our website and go check out the Alpha DevCon 2018 webpage. In there, you'll see the venue. You can register, really good pricing for that right now. And also beyond that, you'll see the new agenda, which is a much more compact, focused agenda, which we think that people are really going to enjoy, that I think they're going to get enormous out. And we have training that's associated with that. So again, Alpha DevCon 2018, go online, check it out.
And if I could make just a couple comments about that.
Please do.
First of all, we have a new session, and I think you're going to see an email about it, where someone is going to be doing a deconstruction of an app, which is both a mobile and a web application, which I think is going to be very cool. Also, for those of you who have gone in the past and have done training, you know it's typically Dion McCormick and Chris Martin, and they will certainly be there doing training. But walking around the room to help you will be not just me, but also Selman Rabins and other people from the development team. We have actually roped them in to help you. So you're gonna. This is actually new to Dion, but we've brought them in, so this is going to be fantastic. It is a shorter venue, which we thought would attract more people, and it has. In fact, we've already sold more than a third of the seats, and here it is February. You know, this time last year it was not that. So they're going really fast. I think the offer is still good through February for the early bird price. You can check with sales at alphasoftware.com for that. But I'm really looking forward to this one. It's going to be great to travel. Yeah, fun.
Yeah, and I'm finding for instance, the location we're going to be at, it's called the B Resort. It's really nice. It's been redone recently. Go check it out on their website, and it's got really beautiful rooms and nice appointments, and It's also part of the whole Disney thing, so you can do like early arrival at Disney. And also, I don't know if anybody's flown into Orlando, but the flights are incredibly aggressively cheap because there's so many. So I think we're very excited about this one. It's going to have a huge impact. And obviously, I guess the developers have realized they need to get involved and make sure we're training people right. So we're good to see it. But we always enjoy having them there because when we can't answer it, they can answer it. And that's what we want. We want you walking away with the core knowledge that you need to continue to do what you want to do. And man, I'm excited to have that team with us. Excellent.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Thank you. No, I appreciate the update there. Okay, tips and tricks. You know, we haven't done this in a while, but what we'd like to do is to kind of walk through a couple little quick tips and tricks, things that will enhance your capabilities and also hopefully make your development more productive, more focused, and do more with less, which is always important. So two things, we kind of touched upon this a little bit there, but the absolute positioning. So I want to do a little bit more on absolute positioning to show you one of the really nice features that's built into Alpha. I think it's kind of underutilized to really make things happen on a website and really improve the experience of your users. And then also something called the control library, which I'm using more and more these days to really allow me to rapidly ramp up new projects and to do things very, very quickly. So I'm going to pop over into my development environment. And let's go ahead. I'm in my development environment. And for people who are new to Alpha Anywhere, I'm in the Web Projects Control Panel. And what I want to do is I have a document here. Let's go ahead and go to and show you it real quick. Demonstration. So let's say I've gotten a challenge. I'm working for an insurance company and I've gotten a challenge. And the idea is they have a lot of forms and they want to fill these forms out online. And so they have an example form here. And let's go ahead. Oh, we'll go ahead and do that. Okay, we'll open it up there. And the idea behind it is that, it doesn't come across. It's a PNG. I'm sorry, that's not, it'll look better here. But I have basically a form here that, man, you can't even see it at all. But it's an insurance form. You fill this out, you submit it, and you can apply for insurance. It's very simple and very rarely. So I want to take that form and I want to put it online. Well, I could rewrite and create like a whole UX, like, recreating that form using controls and other pieces like that, which is perfectly acceptable. But there's a shortcut that actually allows me to quickly put together a form that's very easy to read, very easy to use, but without a lot of the extra effort. So I'm going to go ahead and create new. I'm going to select web component, and I'm going to select the UX component. And the UX component is our form component. I'm going to click next. Now we have a whole bunch of pre-made templates, but I'm going to start with a blank UX component. So I'm going to click OK. So now I'm here and I'm ready to put in my controls. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a couple fields here. And I know it was hard to see. Let me go back here. Let me go ahead and open this up and let's try it on a different. Let's see if it's looks a little better in a different. There, maybe it's easier to read, hopefully. Oh, there. Yeah, that's a little easier to read there. So as you can see, it's an insurance form. It has a little logo up top, and it's got like name of responsible party, relationship, social security number. So I want to create, and my assumption is these are probably related to some level of database. So the first thing I'm going to do is go in and create a couple fields here. So it's going to be name, relationship, and then last but not least, I'm going to put in there SSN, so social security number. So those are my fields. That's the data I want to collect. Now, what I most likely would do is data bind this to my table, to my underlying database, so that it handles this, so that the data put in here will automatically go into the database. But I'm not going to go through that now. The assumption is that I've data bound these fields to a database there. Now, if I go like this, you'll see that it just creates a little form with name, relationship, social security number. I can start typing in my stuff, and I'm off to the races. But what we would like to do is this, is I really want them to see this form and be able to fill it out there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these fields and I'm going to highlight them. Then what I'm going to do is go over here to container, and I'm going to wrap them in a container. Okay. Now, there are many different types of containers, and actually we'll probably do some more tips and tricks on the different types of containers. But when you click Insert Container, you'll see there's a little link here for insert different container types it explains a little bit about what the different ones do and why you would use them. But the one we're going to use here is called absolute layout. And it's about 3/4 of the way down here. So I'm actually wrapping these fields in a container, and that container is going to be absolute layout. Okay, so you'll notice that the container has a specific color. Inside that container are the fields that I want, and now I'm ready to go. Now, the way the absolute container works out is that it allows you to create a system where these fields are absolute position. So with that, the first thing I'm going to do here is that I want to say this has a background image, because I'm going to use that image here to put behind these fields and then align them appropriately. So I'm going to click here and say has a background image. Once I've clicked the checkbox, it's asking me which image it is. I go in here and I could select any there, but it's going to be an image in the web project. So I've already copied that image of that form in here. And so I'm going to go down here and I'm going to find my insurance form. Here we go. And there's my insurance form, and it gives me a little preview right here. And I can resize that image to be a certain size if I want to match a certain screen size, but I'm going to leave it as it is now. So what I've done here is I've said inside this absolute layout container, I want the background image to be the image I selected. And then I'm going to click OK. So now I've selected my background image. I'm now ready to go in and tell it where I want these different fields to be overlaid on there. So let's go ahead and save this. Yeah, always good. Okay. So I'm now going to go back to the absolute layout container, and you'll notice there's a control over here that says absolute positions for controls. So I click on that, and you'll see it's going to open up a preview window. And you'll notice here's my background image. I'm going to go ahead and grab this, and you can see I can create, and I'm highlighting over that. You can scroll down. So this is the bounding box for what's going to be displayed in my container here. So I'm highlighting it so it shows everything. It could be a subset if I only wanted to show part of it. Anything inside this bounding box is what you would see. But let's go ahead and put that down over all the way here. Okay, so that's what's going to be shown inside my container. But you'll notice on the left-hand side, here are those fields that I put within my container environment. So if I had other fields that weren't inside this container beginning and ending tag, you would not see it. So I'm going to click name, and I'm going to click and drag that over there. Or no, I click on it, and then I go over here and I say, this is where I want that. I then click and drag the field for how I would want it to be. And that places this field on the screen. And as you can see, once it's there, I can position it. I can go through and do this. I can grab and this relationship. You'll notice also as I do that, it's creating a bold there. So I'm going to go here and go relationship a party. Okay. Now, one thing that's nice is that you'll notice that it does things like, for instance, when I'm dragging this, it aligns the two things together. So it does that easily. And then I can take these items here and I can put in guidelines. So I can have snapped guidelines. I can put in a grid behind here. And I can also select things. And so let's go ahead and select these two things here. And then I can say, for instance, align left. So let's go ahead and align the left. Maybe, or, oop, I deleted. Oops, that's bad. I'll go backwards. So, oh man, well, that shows you there. So let me go here. I'll put those relationships in there. That's going to be social security number and relationship. Okay. Now I can select these. And so I've lined these things up here. Okay, so I've got that, and I'm going to go ahead and click OK. There we go. Now when I go into working preview and it shows on the screen, you're going to see here are my entry fields. And it's done it so they're aligned perfectly where I want them to be there. And what's great is that it's going to take care of everything for me. So when I launch this in my web browser, which I'm doing right now, and this will just take a moment, it's publishing it and deploying it. You'll see in a moment, here is my web browser, and I'm inside my web browser, and I can go like this, and then here's my layout form. So instead of spending all this time putting images and then bounding boxes and containers, within a matter of a few minutes, I can take an existing form and turn it in. And here's the cool thing. Everything else works the same. The data binding, if I come in here and do validation rules, it will do all that. So all of the regular behaviors you're used to with fields work the same. In fact, I can say, you know what, this relationship, that's got to be a drop-down box. And I'm going to go ahead and change this to a drop-down box. And I'm going to go in here, and once it's changed there, I'm going to go to my choices, and I'm going to say father, mother, sister, brother. Okay. Click OK. Let's go into working preview. And now I have a drop-down box where that sees. Now, I'd have to adjust. And you'll notice it's a little bit limited. It's not showing it. That's because a drop-down box is a little bit different animal. But then you can, of course, with Alpha's capability, you can go in and modify the styling of this drop-down box to make it a little bit more compact or adjust it as you see fit. But you'll notice that I didn't have to write a whole bunch of complicated things. I now have a drop-down box to be able to do that and any other things I need to do on there. So absolute layout is really nice because it's super fast and easy to put together. Now you'll notice I'm going to go ahead and create another absolute layout container real quick. And I'm going to go ahead and do absolute layout. Let's go here. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and say I'll put in a text box. I'll say here is my container. And then I'm going to put in a couple text boxes. And then text 2. Okay. And so traditionally, if I wanted these to be side by side, I would change like the break, or I put containers in there. With this, watch what I can do. I can go in here and I can put in my static text. So I'll make my form about, let's say it's 600 or so by 462 or whatever. So I can go in here. I can say, okay, I want my static text to be here. Then I want my text number 1. Oops, that's text 2. Put those right here, and I'll stick 2. And I'm going to set them side by side. Save that. Now you'll notice that, and actually, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and hide this first one really quickly by going 1 equals 0. But I'm going to go ahead in this absolute layout. And now I have my form right here. Oh, you know what? I don't like how that's lined up. So do I spend a couple minutes working on containers? No, I can just go in here and say, you know what? I'd rather have those on top of each other. And I want them to be the same size width-wise. So I click OK. And there's mine. And now my containers are here and look perfectly. Oh, there should be a gap in there. Let me go in there and adjust them real quick. And I'll go here and make this with a little bit of a gap. And I'll click OK. And working preview. Now I have my gap here. Come on there. So as you can see, it's not only useful for creating forms, but hey, it's a quick and dirty way. If you want to make a very nice looking layout without spending time doing containers, you can do that. And one of the powerful capabilities is when you're built into this, I can take these two items and select them. And then I can do things, for instance, say align the left. So let's say they're different size. I can go, you know what, take these two things right here, and I'm going to match the size. Yep, notice they're now sized properly together. Then I can grab them, and I can highlight them and move them together. I can say, oh, you know, they should be lined up here. Or I can say, let's say we're here, and I want to take these things here, and I'm going to say distribute vertically. Notice it's changed, but let's go ahead and adjust this here. So let's highlight those again, and I'll go distribute vertically. Notice it rearranged that. Or I can say distribute horizontally, and they distribute them there. And so I can match size, weight, all that thing. So you'll see that this is an alternative method to allow you to create very nice looking forms that match a certain paradigm within your system. And you can see right there, you got this, you know, off to the races there. So that's called absolute layout. Very easy to use, very powerful. And again, once you're on the web, it just does all of this alignment for you. So it looks really nice on your web page and in your panel layouts or wherever they go. And we find some people find that it's easier to do certain layouts with this if they've got a very certain style, and they can do it very quickly using this, and everything works exactly the same as before. So that's Absolute Layout. Feel free to play with it. It's a lot of fun and really easy to use. And again, the idea is you create a container, you put the fields you want inside that container, and then you use the absolute positioning for controls to open it up, move them around, do what you need to do, and off to the races from there. By the way, there's built-in help here that will talk to you about how the different things, how to remove things, place things, change them, etc. And you can export this data in and out, so you can export all your settings. So you'll notice that this is saying exactly, excuse me, where is the exact location. So you'll notice it's doing everything as pixel locations. So like when I click on here, you'll notice it's telling me the upper left-hand, right-hand corner and the size of it. So you're able to actually, tune it. So in fact, you can sit there and say, you know what, this one, I want it to be at 15 and 15. So now it's at 15, 15, and I want the width to be 150 pixels and the height to be 30 pixels. Boom. So I don't even have to click here and drag. I can just go in here and modify them right here, and it will take immediate effect over here. So if that one, for instance, I want it to be a width of 100 and a height of 25, boom, boom, I'm good to go. And you can see you can do things on a very pixel level precision, which if you're coming from Access or other things like that, it's very powerful. And again, once you've done that, it works and it lines up perfectly here, and off to the races you go. So something to consider and something to play with, and I think you'll find it's a lot of fun. So that is Absolute Layouts. Very cool from there. So with that, if you have any questions about that, please put them in your GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar control panel in the questions. We'll answer that. But I want to show you one other little trick. Let's say you start developing a lot, which we know with Alpha you are, because it's so fast and easy. You're going to do tons of stuff like that. So let's say you get into the mode where you have a certain design pattern, like you do things a certain way, you line things out a certain way. Or for instance, you've set up control bars a certain way and you want to do all these things the way you want to do it. Well, what you can do very powerfully is you can actually, in Alpha, you can highlight things and copy those controls to the clipboard. So if let's say you're creating a new, let's create a new component, and I'll make it a UX, okay? And I've created this new UX here, and I'm in here, and I want to go ahead and collect these things. I can actually literally copy all those controls, go to my new form, and then do menu paste, and it will paste all those controls in there. And that's nice. But, to speed things up, we have a really neat feature in here. So let's say I like these panel headers and panel footers. I really like how they're structured. So what I can do is I can highlight those and I'm going to right-click and say, Save Selected Controls in Library, okay? And I'm going to call this Webinar Controls, but you can give it any name you want to. So what I've done is I've highlighted those fields. I'm going to add them to my controls. Now, very interesting right here is you'll notice that there are different ways they can save. Local, meaning it's only going to be for this project. Project, or local, is only visible for this web project. Project is for any projects in my web space, but the other one that's really powerful is global, which means it's going to be available to all web projects that you create. So if you create a whole new web project, these are going to be available. So I'm going to click OK. Great. So now that's in there. So I'm going to go here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a panel layout. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click right here, and I'm going to say, oops, I'm sorry. I'm going to go to highlight my control. I'm going to go to Menu, Load Controls from Library. Okay. Now here are all the different ones. So I'm going to say, oh, here's my webinar controls. Boom. Guess what? Now I have that set of controls that I've saved. So this is very powerful because first and foremost, you can always in Alpha, when you have a UX or a grid, you can actually save that as a template. And that's available to do that. So if I'm in something, I can actually take this whole thing here and I can save the whole UX or the whole grid as a template. And therefore, if I ever want to recreate this, all I have to do is say, create a new UX or grid from that template, and boom, everything will be set. But often that's kind of a brute force, meaning you don't want everything. You just have certain cool controls that you use, certain sets of controls. So in that situation, the ability to do what's called load and save controls in a library is very powerful. And in fact, let me go back here, go to my new one right here, go here, and I'm going to go to save, oh, not save, I want to load it. There you go, load controls. So you'll see there's already some pre-made ones in here that we put in here. Editors, delete record buttons, list navigators, things like that that are existing that we've already kind of added in there. But as you can see, I can create my own controls in here. So one I've created as standard panel layout. So when I want to create a new system, I can go here to UX. I'm starting with a blank one. I'm going to go here, go to menu, load controls from library, do my standard panel layout, and here's my standard layout. You know, it's got a layout, panel card, 3 panel cards, everything's set up properly, the distance, the layout sizes, all the different parameters are the same. So now I can immediately go in and I've got a, you know, panel card set up, ready to go, and off to the races, able to do. So that is really powerful, and that's built into Alpha, and that's one of our sort of productivity tools is called load controls, save controls to library. So you can use either a higher level template or you can do load and save from the library. And we find that this is very, very powerful and useful. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it back to Dave. Dave, you find any questions we might have?
Oh my gosh, there are quite a few questions. A lot about what you've just been describing, which is fantastic. So let's get started. First of all, at least 2 people asked this question, so let's just start there. With an absolute layout, definitely you could see it as an input device, but what if I wanted to save that out as a PDF or something like that? Can I do that, or do I need to?
Yes, there is a function built into Alpha that allows you to export this as a PDF, and I should have been prepared for that. Let me do something real quick. Let's go to other controls button.
Sure.
Okay, let's go here and let's go layout. There it is. There's actually, see, I'm smarter than I thought. There's actually an action JavaScript. So let me go through that a little closer.
Yeah.
So let's say I want to export this as a PDF. Actually, let's do this. Let's have some fun and see if we can break something. So I'm going to go ahead and hide my second one here because I don't need that one. Oops, I'll do it on client side because I might need later. Okay, I'm going to go here and I'm going to set this, and I'm going to go ahead and show that. And I'm going to say this, I'm going to move it up there, and I'm going to go PDF form. Okay. Now I'm going to take that button PDF form, I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to add a new action JavaScript. And here's the PDF absolute layout container PDF. Click OK. So I tell it which container, because I might have multiple ones. So I'm going to do absolute layout 1, which is there. What is my action? Do I want to download it, or do I want to pass it to an XBasic function? And the reason that we do that is that, let's say you want to click a button and then email this PDF to someone. Well, what's cool is it will call an XBasic function, and that XBasic function, you can actually send it out via email or store it in a database or save it or do many things. So I'm just going to say download. And then I tell it the client-side file name, and we'll go test.pdf. Although you can use what's called a function, a JavaScript function, to be able to actually generate a name. So you could actually look at a field on the record and say, okay, I'm going to save it as that PDF there. So I'll click OK. Save that. Let's go ahead and go into live preview. Since working preview, certain things aren't there. So I'm going to go ahead and go in here. Test, father, test. Okay. And I'm going to click PDF form. Okay. And in a moment, you'll notice that it did something. It says, do you want to open or save this file? Let's say open it. And it's going to open it up in this case, Edge. There it is.
Look at that.
There is my form. Form, entered things. I'd probably adjust so that it doesn't overlay the lines, make it, and that's all just tweaking this to make it a little bit smaller, those kind of changing the font size, etc. But think about how many hours of work that would be to do in any other system. And the nice thing, Tal, is now this person can download a filled out form. And guess what? Check this out. Let's try this. This is another thing I want to try here. Let's put in here a data control. Let's put in a signature capture. Okay. So I put it, notice where I put it. I put it inside this absolute layout right here. So I'm now going to go in here, go down to where the signature party is, and I'm going to go grab this. And now this, we may need to adjust our form because I think it has to be a certain size. So I'm just going to cheat and make it big for right now. Okay, so I'm going to save that. Let's do a live preview. So I'll go this, like that, this, and then I'll scroll down here and I'll go, accept. Now, notice I've got a signature there. So, hey, that worked out pretty good, actually. Beginner's luck. Hit PDF form, click open or save it or whatever you want to do and check it out. There,
Cool.
save form. Isn't that cool? That is so
cool.
much fun.
Yeah.
And look, how long did that take me? And all this data could have been stored in a database. So I have it in a database format. This PDF could have been, I could have called the next basic function, saved it to a file, and then it becomes a permanent record. And it's got a date and a time and it's on the system. You could then put that into a database as a link or whatever you have to do there. And so really cool stuff, you know, and you could create a whole online form filling system within a matter of minutes with this that's data driven. And again, all these controls are just standard alpha controls, so you can require things to be filled out and based on certain things do other things, and lots of flexibility to it. But great question, and as you can see, it's built in.
Very cool. So, someone asked, now can you do this on a mobile app? And I'd like to add the question, should you do this on a mobile app?
And I haven't done that. I'd have to find that out. And I understand that, but nice.
Okay, so when we came out with this feature, let me just add a little bit.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, I mean, this is a UX, so UXs do work on mobile layouts. But frequently, when you're dealing with mobile, you're often dealing with phones. And we found that the metaphor of taking a printed paper form and adopting it to the phone is usually not a very good one. Usually you're much better off doing a layout. Now, if it happened to actually be a small form, like the size that could fit on an index card or something, there's no reason you couldn't use this feature. But when people have asked us about this in the past, we said, okay, you can, but before you do that, make sure that you can actually read it. I mean, shrinking a piece of 8.5 by 11 or A4 paper down onto the size that fits onto a mobile phone is very cumbersome. There are even products that do that, but it's usually not the best choice. You're usually better off making something just for the phone. But it is mobile compatible. So if you do have like a small image you want to use, that's fine. If you're doing it on a big tablet, that would be great as well. But it will work that way.
Very fun stuff.
Let's see what else we've got here. Actually, quite a few here. Ooh, this is kind of an interesting one. So the question here is, can a layout be used for the list's detail, like on a split screen? So for example, you have a regular list control on the left, but I want to see all the detail fields in an absolute layout with some sort of background or something behind it.
Let's try. Good question.
Let's try. I think you know the answer.
Okay, and I believe it's a big yes, but let's go ahead and do this.
But let's see. Let's show it's done.
Yeah. So I'll go list test. I'm going to do the quick setup genie. And, oh, you know what? Actually, let's do it this way. Let's go. Yeah, I want to do, let's see, yeah, I'll do it from the database. I want to do it as fast as possible. So let's test. So we'll connect it to my connection. We'll select, let's say it's customer, and I'm going to make it simple. I'm going to pick few fields, nothing big here. And I'll go ahead and have the system create a detailed view. Okay. So now I've got my list. Oh, it's doing its final calculations. There's my list. Okay. So now I'm going to go to this container here that's already been created, and I'm going to change that container type to absolute layout. Okay. Now I'm going to go in here to my absolute positioning, Customer code, company name. And notice one thing I really like, notice the snap tos. So as you do it, it snaps to the angles. So it's really cool. And then let's go ahead and do that. Okay. And then I could grab all these and say, you know what? I want to get rid of that one. So I'll select all three of these. I'll say, you know, let's match first of them so they all look the same. And let's distribute them vertically. Okay. Click OK. Yep. Okay. It does things for me, so that's kind of nice. And now I have, pretty cool, huh? Now what I'm missing here is I want to go back in there and I've got a button here. That's the save button. So let's add that in there. Do a working preview. And there's there. Oh, the save is off. So I'll have to play with that. Interesting. So I have to play with that a little bit. I think they're, where did I put that? Oh, it could be, you know what I'd probably do is put these in different panel cards so that they lay out correctly. Like this probably needs to be in its own panel card or container. And let's put that there. And we'll create these side by side. So there's some playing, a little trial and error stuff. Yeah, for some reason that button's showing up there. But that's okay. I could just change it. We do handle buttons and other controls in here. So I wonder why that's showing up over there. I'll have to play with it. Yeah, has to do with we'll look at that kind of scenario. But bottom line is, yes, you can use absolute layouts, because reality is this is just a special type of container that aligns these, and these are just standard controls and buttons and other things like that. So, great question. Oops, did I lose you, Dave?
No, you didn't, but I
sorry.
perhaps turn the volume back up on my mic, which is all right. Thanks. So we do have a few more questions, not absolute layout questions at the moment, although I think there are a few more that are sneaking in. But this one was asked early on in the session, and it has to do with a list, with a child list. And what they would like to do is, in the child list, display one of the fields from the parent.
Ah, okay. That's a really good one. I
may have stumped you on this one, and we may move on.
I understand why is that, you know, maybe you're only displaying the child list, but you want to give reference to the parent list item or something like that.
Yeah,
so
exactly right.
I can see what they can do that. The thing you can do in list controls, which is pretty powerful, is in your fields, you can add new fields, images, or a custom control. Let's see if it may be a custom control. And then what you can do is, definition is, this is XBasic. So that's probably not what we're going to want to do. The way I would normally do that is base my child list as a view in the database and add the field there. And so if I wanted to just get it done, I would create it as a view.
Sure.
That with linking back to the parent, showing that field, and then that field will just be in the list and be able to be seen. And therefore you can use out of the box kind of capabilities there. So that's how I would probably, that's the simple way to do it. I'm trying to think what we could also do. Dynamic button, hyperlink. Yeah, custom control would be the other way. And what you do is in a custom control, and the only downside about that is that it's XBasic created, so I don't think it would be very handy mobile-wise, is that it actually renders with XBasic, which is more of a connected scenario. So if you're connected, you could use a custom control, and in here, you could just use, it's XBasic, so you could say, hey, get the value of the parent and show that in this field kind of thing here. But what we'd really like to do is be able to add another piece from that standpoint. So off the top of my head, I have to do a little bit more research and on the best way to approach that to add that kind of custom field into there.
Excellent, thanks. So here's a question about adding a piece of functionality to a list. They would like to know, Is it possible to create a secondary menu? And by that, I believe they mean a context menu or a right-click menu from a value in a list. So if you had built a list and you right-clicked on that list, have something pop up that you can make selections from.
Yeah, and the way you do that is the following is, so the important thing about lists is that you have something here called return value type. And the return value type, it determines what it returns. So the default is primary key, but you could also select a specific field in your list and return that. So if you don't want to return but you want to return like the contact name, you can do that. Or you can actually do an expression. And in this, you can actually say, I want it to be this plus, so you can do some pretty fun things and sophisticated things with this, plus, say, contact name. And so what we'll do is merge these two things together to show that there. Now, with that in mind, the list has, so let's go ahead and do this. Let's give this a try. Let me go ahead and put I'm going to, again, flat. I'm going to put in a container, and I'm going to make this a window container, okay? And in here, I'm going to put, and I'm going to move for giggles this customer code down in the window container here. Okay, so in the list itself, what I want to do is open up that window. So I'm going to create a what's called a JavaScript action here. And I'm going to say show customer or show window. Okay. Now I'm going to go in here and there's an action JavaScript that's called show container window, and it will show that. Okay. And that's all there is to it. And again, this is very simple JavaScript. This is the JavaScript, but we'll do it there. Okay. So what I want to do is when someone right clicks on the list or clicks on the list, I want to show that window. So it would call this. So I'm going to go ahead and save that action here. I'm going to go into my list. Actually, before I do that, I want to change this window to be let's change it to be what's called a drop down. So you can see there's different types of windows. So I'll just do drop down and we'll show that. So that determines how it will show. So let's go into my list of tests. I'll go to my list properties, and what I want to do is when someone, you'll see there are different behaviors. So let's say it's right click. So what I want to do is when someone's looking at here and they right click on the list test, I want it to do something. And in this case, what I want to do is I want to run that action JavaScript I created. By the way, I could just paste that JavaScript right here, but I just want to say insert code for show window, which I just created. So now it's going to do that. So again, what's going to happen is when someone right clicks on the list, it's going to run this action JavaScript that shows this window. And let's see if it works. I'm going to save this. List, absolute. Okay. Let's give her a try. So there's my list. I'm going to right click on it. Oh, and notice that. Okay, a couple of things I wanted to show you real quick. And notice what's going on. As I select the different lists, it's updating it because the field's there. So I've got a couple of things. First, I want to be able to close this window. So let's go into the window here. And let's adjust it. And let's do the following. Let's say has a pointer icon. And the position is going to be, auto. And then I want to show some buttons on there, like for instance, close. Actually, do I have action close? So I'm going to show a button so I can close that here. So you adjust how this window looks through this interface right here. Now, if you'll notice in here, there's one other thing I would have to fix, which I don't have off the top of my head, is that if I right click on here, you'll notice that I'll figure out how that closed there.
Right. The browser itself wants to open a context menu too.
Yeah. What's going on is that, let's go ahead and go in here and let's launch it into a browser, maybe a little easier to see. And I'm starting to throw too many things in here at one time, but it's okay. The basic concept is that you just trap that to open up a window on top of it. Okay. Now, problem is when I'm here, when I right click, the browser's grabbing that right click event. So I can right click here. And when I right click on it, you'll notice it opened up my window right here. Okay. And my close isn't working. I'm not sure why I'll have to do that, but I do that. But I can go in here, right click on one of these, and by selecting it from there, it'll open up those pieces here and you'll see that here. Now this is draggable. You may not want it draggable there. You have to get the close to work. But the one thing I have to find out, and we had this kind of a week ago or so, is how do I trap right click so that the browser doesn't grab that right click action? So it's propagating it, meaning when I did the right click, it passed it through to the background there. But in this case, what happened is it's also showing the browser specific right click. So we'll play with that and play that and do that a little bit there. So, but that's how you would accomplish that, is that you would use a window to pop up the information in your list control on your list properties in the JavaScript runtime. On the right click event, you would trap and show that window or whatever it happens to be. And in there too is, by the way, here I could run an XBasic callback. I could run some other local JavaScript to update fields and do other things like that. So there's a lot of things you can do with it. I kind of cheated by just putting that customer code because it's already linked to the list. So when I click on a list item, it automatically populates this for me. But there's many other kind of things you can do that would allow you to, make it a little bit more sophisticated, have kind of a right-click context menu. So that's how I would approach that.
Excellent. Another question here is, can you make changes to records in a list but without using the detail view? And so what they really want to do is just change a logical field value from true to false. So I don't know, maybe in the list have a button that goes true to false, or maybe programmatically. Is there a way of doing it without actually having to lay out a field in the
absolutely.
form? All right.
In the list here, you can, in there, if you go to the list properties, the fields, you can add a button here. So we'll go change. Okay. And in this change button, we have basically the click event. And in here, you can do anything you want, JavaScript. So for instance, I can say, for instance, get value. So let's say I get the value, or I can set value, and you can do those things. So you'd have to do a little bit of JavaScript there to basically tell it what you want to do. Now, there's two ways to approach it. One way is to do a little JavaScript to actually edit the data in the list and then sync the list. So you would actually edit the list data right there on the client using JavaScript. And that's option number one. Option number two is to do an AJAX callback and then actually edit the record in the database and then refresh the list after you've done that. Both are viable. The nice thing about the front end one is that when you edit the value in the list will take care of persisting that back to the database when you do a sync of the list back to the backend database. So I would go that direction, but just be aware that you're going to have to do a little bit of JavaScript coding, nothing very big, to then perform that modification. So you'd get what row you're on the list, and then from that data, you would then update the value of that row in this list, and then you would tell it to sync. And there's update list. See, we got there. Yeah, I'm trying to see if there's a, yeah, there we go. List update root. So right here is what you would do is, so you get which row. And so here's the example code right here is you get a pointer to the list. You figure out which row it is. Now, in this case, there is a command that will say what row you've selected. And then you notice you say here, you go list object, update the row, which row, and then in here is the value you want to change it. So I'm saying change the first name field to John and the last name to Smith. So that's how it goes from there. Or if you have a primary key, you could get the primary key of the selected row and then use that where you pass the primary key and there. So nothing really hard. You're talking about 2 or 3 lines of text, but the cool thing about that is that you would immediately modify. Now, important, this updates the list row, but what you need to do is one of two things. Either you've enabled on the list a automatic sync to the database, or you tell it to list, where's sync, it's save. list here. Wait, let's find the right one. There's a command in here that will then, which command is that? So I set the value and then I do a synchronize. Which one is that? There's a second, just to be heads up that if you change the value of the row, it changes it in the list, but it doesn't persist it back to the database. So then you need to do a list, like a list sync that will then force it to save those modifications back to the back-end system. And then it does a standard sync of it, looks the values in this, and then sends it there. So, but that's how I would approach it. And again, if you don't want to do it that way, you could always do an XBasic callback, use XBasic to modify the row, and then tell the list to refresh the data, and then it will reread that data back into the list. But it depends on how you're doing it. If you're out in the field, it's a mobile solution. You always want to try and do it on the mobile side because you can't guarantee you have that back-end connection. And it's up to you and what you're comfortable doing. So that's how I'd approach that.
Okay, next question. Not exactly an Alpha Anywhere question, but actually totally related. There's someone who wants to use Absolute Layout, but they find that when they're scanning forms, they're having some difficulties. If they scan the form at 1 or 200 DPI, it comes in as a reasonable size, but it's kind of fuzzy to read on the screen. When they do it at around 500 DPI, they have to resize it, and they find that when they resize it, it's also kind of hard to work with and hard to read on the screen. What do you have advice on scanning? If not, I have some advice on scanning.
That's a really good one. I'll let you,
Right.
Dave, handle that one.
So my solution is to actually scan at 1200 DPI. So what you end up with is a fairly huge file, but that's usually sort of a minimum of what even an inexpensive scanner will do nowadays. And then I'll put it into a type of graphics processing program. I happen to use Paint Shop Pro because I learned to use it and it's inexpensive. If you have Photoshop, by all means, you could do it the same way. And you really want to use a program like that that really knows, that has good algorithms for shrinking things down while keeping them sharp at the same time. And so really after that, it's 1200 DPI and then just use a good quality graphics editing program to get the PNG file to the final size that you want. And do use a PNG file as well. PNG files are lossless file formats, so unlike a JPEG, they do not degrade each time you save them. So that would be my advice there.
And just a heads up, you can go on Fiverr and there are other services that you can just send them the forms and they'll scan them for you and do a much better job because they have really professional and they do touch-ups and things like that. So obviously quick and dirty is yourself, but there are many services that will take forms and then scan them into web-based images, but at very high quality with good definition because they know how to do all that kind of stuff.
Excellent. So this is a great question, and perhaps we have enough time to answer it. We'll see.
Yeah. It's Tips and Tricks Day.
It's Tips and Tricks Day. All right. So this person is building an application, and they are building, a mobile application, and then they sort of just realize, oh my goodness, offline is one of my requirements. I'm part of the way into building it. What do I need to do just in general to make something a offline capable application?
Okay. So first and foremost, the list control. That is the heart of anything you do. So learn as much as you can about the list control. There's outstanding documentation, tons of videos and things like that. But the list control was designed for mobile, for offline. And so it really is the tool that is used to convey the information between the back end, the front end, and store data, edit it, local, and other pieces there. So your list control is step number one. Now, we still have grids in the system, and they're very powerful, but the list control is getting more and more mature all the time. New features, capabilities are being added almost on every release or almost every pre-release. It's crazy. So get to know those there. The other thing about, so that will really address the question of how are you going to manage your data offline? And then the next step is really just learning more about what's called responsive design, how to set up containers and structure those pieces so that they lay out on the screen properly on these mobile devices kind of scenario. But your list control is really the heart of any offline applications. So the more you know about the list control, and again, there's tons of great videos on our documentation site. that will walk you through all those capabilities.
There are, and there's in fact a tutorial. Unfortunately, Sarah, our documentation person, just had to step out literally 1 minute ago. But we do have good stuff in documentation.alphasoftware.com on offline, where we explain the whole thing from a very high level and then drill down from there. So there's basically a tutorial that was been written around that. So that's worth checking out. If you do have further questions though on that, by all means send them off to guides, GUIDES, at alphasoftware.com. This is a minor point, and something I hadn't seen in a while, but someone had been using in the past the signature capture control on a UX, and said when they used it, it ended up moving the screen around on their finger, which is silly because it needs to stay still if you're going to do a signature.
Yeah.
Okay.
If
that was fixed, or if that's just there's some sort of trick to avoiding that happening.
Well, the real trick is when you have it in a container.
Yeah.
In the container over here. I'm sorry, not container, panel card. Let me go ahead and put it in a panel. Yeah, I'm going to put in a panel card here. Okay. In the panel card, body scroll axis. And so you can lock it in terms of whether the body can scroll at all. And the idea behind that is that the idea of, like, let's say you had more content that could fit on the screen. Well, you can actually use your finger to drag it around and show all that hidden contact within the phone. So let's say you had a bunch of stuff in this panel card, but you had a small phone, only certain parts of it. But when you're developing like an optimized mobile, you'll know what content should be on there. So you want to get rid of the scrolling. And the reason why is then when they touch it, it ignores any kind of scroll events and sends that directly to the control underneath it without doing anything. Like, it doesn't try and treat it as a scroll. And so in that case, you may need to resize your signature capture field, control to optimize it for your user interface, how big you want it. But this scrolling is probably where you're running into it, where you're touching it and it's jumping around on you. If you get rid of that, then it's not the underlying panel card is going to be rock solid steady and just show you the controls and where they're at when they were placed.
Excellent. So I'm coming through the list of questions here.
Yeah, a lot of good questions. Thank you, everybody.
There are some good participation. Yeah. Someone pointed out that from their experience, that when you're doing an absolute layout, it's often easier to leave the buttons on the outside of the absolute container.
Yes,
so
I will say that's true.
That might be the that might be the secret to that one. Let's see what else we've got. Trying to find one that we can actually get done in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
That's the trick. All right.
Yeah. So you would have to make them small, put them beside there.
Here's a small one. Okay, so there's a phone gap action when you're using the camera, an action JavaScript action. And they had recalled in the past that in their mobile app, they were able to allow their, basically hit a button to take a picture in a field. They were allowed to either use their camera or choose a video from their photo library. But it seemed that they had lost the ability to choose from the photo library. It always went right to camera. Can you give any advice on that?
Ah, that's interesting. I personally haven't seen that, so I'd have to do a little research on that. But, you're able to, I'm trying to think if it's a difference between, I think it's a difference between, but see, notice it says camera photo library. So both of these there.
Yeah.
Image upload would be, but you're going to be wanting to use one of these two, image capture. So here, yeah, I mean, it should capture all that image there. So
capture both. So if you are not,
maybe because of, maybe only PhoneGap allows you to start going after the,
I believe PhoneGap skips the image library, and HTML5 by default gives you that choice. Yeah.
So it could be this setting right here, and we'd have to play with it a little bit.
Right. Whoever asked that question, go ahead and send in an email to guides@alphasoftware.com.
Yeah, please do.
And so that we can help narrow that down to see if it's a bug or something. But
because it's nice to be able to select both, because sometimes you've already captured the image and you want to move it into the app.
Exactly, right. And sometimes it's nice to skip it if you're trying to make a streamlined process, in which you're just going right to the camera in each case. So
but realize, the photo library is tough because there may be too many cat photos in there and you might accidentally upload a cat photo. So let's just let's all be developers with a conscience and be careful. We do not want to propagate a lot more cat photos.
There are
in
too
the
many
world.
cat photos on the internet.
There
I think
are
we know
enough.
that. Yeah. Fabulous. And with that, we end our webinar. Thank you, everyone who attended today. Thank you, Dion, for presenting. And if
Thank
you
you.
have questions during the middle of the week or any time, send them to guides, GUIDES, at alphasoftware.com, and we will be happy to get back to you. Copy of today's recording of today's webinar will be available on YouTube and at alphasoftware.com/videos. Please give us a couple days to get it posted. Thanks again. We hope to see you next week. Take care and goodbye.